This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
So warm welcome to a beautiful and beyond Ngala. And we're just having a look at these two beautiful birds in the puddle of water there. So they're known as the saddle-billed storks. And what's currently happening with them, it looks like it's a male and a female. And they are slowly moving their feet through the water to probably see if they can disturb some possibly catfish, maybe some frogs. And then from there, hopefully catch them. But I would like to welcome everyone and ask you to come and join us on this live safari in the African bush. Have a look at how this saddle-billed stork is maneuvering its bill through the mud. Almost looks like it's cutting the mud. So basically, this time of the year, whenever the water starts drying up, there's quite a lot of catfish in these puddles. And that's probably what the saddle-bill is after. So I'm Nikki here at Beyond Ngala. So I'm going to be your ranger for this afternoon, and with me on the camera is Owen. So what I want to do from here is I just want to head back to these saddle-billed storks and just to have another closer look at them. And if you look at the one that's right there, you'll see with the colors, like especially the eye, you'll notice there's a very bright yellow colored eye. So that's the female. The male has more of a darker color eye, and underneath the chin there's this yellow wattle. So just notice the difference. I mean, remember earlier on we saw the yellow eye. Look at how darker the eyes of this one, as well as that yellow wattle just under the chin. But beautiful colors. One of my favorite birds.
Good afternoon and welcome to Djuma Private Game Reserve in the Sabi Sands. I hope you're all having a wonderful afternoon. We have found a lovely herd of elephants, and my name is Steve Falconbridge, joined by Craig Zammert on camera. And as always, very excited to have you with us. Jump on board, get ready for a wonderful afternoon. Now, we are surrounded at the moment by elephants. Just need to try and find you the best view. How about this little fellow coming over the island, Craig? He's looking very cute. Oh, no, that'll do. Sorry about that. There we go. Here's a little youngster. The herd is very relaxed. Sorry, Craig. Yeah, I think you were probably right the first time. We've got a whole lot of young boys here about to come and say hello. Young boys are always the best, everybody. They can be quite cheeky. Hello, boys. They're always a little bit on the side of the herd. Teenage boys are too cool to be hanging out amongst all the kids. A little balancing act now. Yes, look how big he is. Are you going to come down into the river and play? He wants to shake hands, Greg. Oh, it's a wonderful afternoon. What a better way. No better way to start with elephants. Craig and I are going to be spending some time with these magnificent animals.
Good afternoon and a very warm welcome to And Beyond Phinda Private Game Reserve. My name is Damon, and behind the camera we've got Marcel. And we've come out into the open plains this afternoon in search of rhinos, both black and white rhino. So hopefully we'll be able to find at least one of the two species this afternoon. For the meantime though, we've found two giraffes. And as we watch them staring off into the trees there, just a reminder that this is, of course, a live and interactive safari, and we would love to hear from you. If you have any questions or comments, please send them to us using the hashtag WildEarth on Twitter. Otherwise, if you are under the age of 18, you can also send through your questions to us at kidsquestions@wildearth.tv. But isn't that just a magnificent scene? Those two giraffes striding out across the grassland there. Nothing that quite makes a giraffe look small, like an open grassland, like an open African landscape. It's so beautiful to be able to see them down in the bottom of this dried up waterhole. And again, look at how they're staring into the trees there, everyone. Well, now just the one on the left. See the one on the left, how it's looking into the bushes? And very often that kind of behavior is typical of giraffes that have spotted something interesting. Maybe a predator, or maybe just something strange that's going on. And we can often use that kind of behavior to help us to find predators like lions or cheetah. In fact, just a couple of days ago, we managed to find a mother cheetah and her 3 cubs by following the gaze of a giraffe, or the gaze of several giraffes rather. But I think now that the fact that that giraffe has walked forward and now appears to be grooming herself, or his self rather, it looks like it might be a young bull, tells us that there isn't really anything there of interest to the giraffe. We're going to carry on from here, everyone. Myself and Marcel are going to go and check some waterholes and see if we can find some white rhinos.
Here is a flowering knobthorn, and this is super exciting because the knobthorns start to flower as an indication that it's getting a little bit warmer. Hi everyone, my name is Trishala and I've got Theo on camera this very pleasant afternoon out here on Djuma Game Reserve. And like I said to you, this knobthorn is flowering, and this is awesome because it's an indication of the change in the weather. And as you can tell, today is a beautiful day. It's 24 degrees Celsius and 76 degrees Fahrenheit. It's nice and warm. So I'm very excited to see these knobthorns are flowering. If we look along the trunk of the tree, a little bit more towards the bottom, you'll see there's tiny little knobs. Giving the trunk a bit of a jagged appearance. Hence the name knobthorn. Latin name is Senegalia nigrescens. Now giraffes love this tree, and in fact they are thought to be the only mammal pollinator of this beautiful knobthorn.
Thanks, Trish. Yes, I see it feels like spring is in the air. A day like this. We are still with our elephants. They're giving us a wonderful show here. Little youngsters all behaving, shaking their heads, telling us what they think of us. If you ever do find yourself in a herd of elephants and the youngsters behave and shake their head and make all sorts of noise, it's okay. It's the big females you have to watch out for. Not these naughty little boys. I can spend all day with elephants. I have actually. I've spent days and days with them. Constantly busy. Always eating or drinking. Even if they're just standing there, they seem to be doing something with their body, which is always worth watching and having a look at the behavior. So Craig and I are going to reposition, get you some better views, and see if we can get some better shots of the youngsters. Hello. everybody, we're going to try reposition for our elephants here. They're all walking past. Sorry, Craigie, bear with us. We're an ad break, everybody. That is what happens when you start the car in the sand. It feels like you get a bit stuck. Panic. Don't panic. You turn around. Yes, of course, Bex. We'll quickly sort out these elephants. There are some very cute little ones in this herd that were charging Craig and I just before. And they like run away from mum with their ears like that. It's just adorable. So let's see if we can get you some of that live, everybody. That is our objective. We're going to spend the whole afternoon with these ellies. Here's a very small little one. Lots of elephants everywhere. Craig, you tell me when you're happy with the position. Right there, that mama's told me stop. So I will stop. Welcome back live to Djuma, everybody, where we have now found ourselves ensconced in this herd of elephants. I do apologize about the backlighting. We just had to turn around to try and get you some more views. And this is a very big herd. There's more than 30, 40 animals here of all ranges and sizes. It's very common to find the herds moving through these depressions where there's lots of fresh grass and lots of fresh food. MGN, you want to know how far away elephant can smell water? I have absolutely no idea. They can smell water more than a meter underground, if that gives you an indication. But they actually know... Oh, Craigie, this one on the left is going to give us a show. Sorry. He got very surprised that we were here and then ran to mum. The matriarchs and the oldest females in the herd will always know where there's permanent water. And there's well-used pathways and very, very intimate knowledge that's passed on from granny to daughter all the way down. And so elephants know where the water is. They can probably smell it, but I really couldn't tell you how far away they can smell it from. If the wind is in the right direction. Most animals, you'll notice out here, don't necessarily smell the water. They sort of just have an idea of where it is. Can I reposition there, Craigie? As we're losing them in the thickets, let's just turn around the corner here. We've got a herd all around us. Maybe get you some more light and to try to reposition for you and get you some better shots.
Good afternoon. It is another gorgeous day out here at Tswalu Kalahari. It is fantastic having you with us. I've got some fun stuff planned for the drive today. I don't know if we're going to get it right or not. That'll be beyond my control. But my thinking is, it's so nice and cool under these trees here. Sure, it's actually quite a warm day. But yeah, my thinking is, I really want us to try see if we can find Artwolf for you. And if we're very lucky, well, in fact, we'll be lucky on Artwolf, but also perhaps African wildcats. I know, I've been looking for these things for a while in that, but the more we try, the more different areas that we cover where I know they actually occur, where there have been sightings recently, the greater the odds are of us actually finding these animals. So, and again, feel free to ask us any questions. If you want to know anything about this environment that we're in, it is a remarkable environment. A lot of these animals have very, very special adaptations in order to survive in these semi-arid savannas. Sorry, Angel just asked a question but I missed the question. How often?
Does Tswalu place salt blocks?
Oh, how often? Okay, that's a very, very good question. And the question there from Angie is how often are mineral licks placed out on the reserve? And that we don't have a set time schedule. It really depends on game utilization of those. So you'll find at certain times of the year that the utilization of these lick blocks increases, and that's particularly right at the end of the dry season as the temperatures are picking up. We haven't had rain yet, so I'm talking about September, October. Like I say, we can be getting into the high 30s, 40s then. There's very, very, very little, if any, green vegetation around. So the animals start coming under a lot of nutritional stress then. Any pregnant females will be really feeling the heat in terms of getting enough nourishment for them and the fetuses that they're carrying. And so because of that, that's when those lick blocks, they'll be going through those things a lot faster. Early in winter, so when there's still a lot of greenery around, I'm talking about April, May, June, the nutritional requirements are generally met by the vegetation out here. So that's a great question.
So often whenever we do drives, we see all these big, amazing animals. We might see some of the trees, but we don't always see the smaller things. And often when you go off on foot, it's pretty amazing to see some of the smaller organisms, maybe the flowers, some tracks. And right over here, I know from the angle it might be difficult to see, but you'll notice it looks like there's a small hole in the ground right over here. Now this is caused by something known as an antline, and hopefully soon I can try and see if there's a way of maybe getting him out gently, just to show everyone how this antline would look like. But I try to draw a little picture here. I had to get some help because my artistic skills aren't always the best, but just to show you, if I had to put it down here, basically this looks like a funnel. So it has quite a wide opening at the top, and then as you go down in the hole, it goes almost like in a form of a cone shape. And down here is an organism known as an antline. So basically it hunts ants, which we can possibly see if we can get it. Now when an ant moves and it eventually gets to the side here, it will fall down into this funnel. And the more it tries to escape, the more this antline reflects sand in that direction so that it will slide down. And once it gets down here, this antline will use two pinches, grab it, and then pull it under the sand. Now, bearing that in mind, let's try and see if we can possibly get an antline out. I don't know even if there's an antline within this nest. It might be an old one that's abandoned, but there is a good chance we might be able to see it. It is quite small, so bear with me. I'm going to try and see if we can get it out and hopefully put it in my hand. What we will do is immediately after that, we'll put him back, but hopefully everyone will be able to see him. So let's give it a go. Okay, so he's right over here. Just gently take him out. Here he comes. So he's quite small, as we mentioned, but he's right over here. Just trying to be as delicate as possible. Just want to see that it is him and it's not something else. No, it's something else. Let me give it one more go. I think he's just hiding away. Trying to see if I can get him out. So I don't want to disturb it too much. I was just trying to see if I loosen the swirl, if I'd be able to see it, but unfortunately I can't see him. If we do find another one, hopefully we'll show it, but basically it looks like an ant with these two big pinchers. And what it will do is use those two big pinchers, grab hold of any ant, and from there on, pull it into the sand. But pretty amazing find.
It is. I love the antline. Amazing, amazing things. Like here, can you hear it? It's a brown-headed parrot. I hope you all are keeping your bird list. You can add this one to it. They are amazing. That is just my game drive radio going on. That's how we communicate with each other. Standing by, Rex. Gorgeous. A-firm he is. I'm sure he'll be in contact with you soon. Isn't it just gorgeous? You can see the green body. Typical parrot beak. And that brown grayish head. Looking around, looking around. Oh! Stunning. Now is our roller still on the top there, Theo? There it is. You can still hear the parrot calling, so it's flown off nearby. And here we have a lilac-breasted roller. Well, I hope that your bird lists are filling up, and hopefully we'll find some more soon. That was nice. The parrot was calling for us. I can still hear it. Gorgeous. Alright, I think I'm going to go into the Mulwati, see if we can find a few more birds. Having a good birding afternoon. I've been feeling a little birdie. If that is a word.
Welcome back to And Beyond Pinda, everyone. We've come on down to one of the water. We would expect that there would have been some rhinos that must have come down to drink here. So we've come to look for tracks. We haven't found anything just yet in the way of tracks that might tell us where and when the rhinos did come down to drink. Managed to find this beautiful grey.
Welcome back live, everybody, to Djuma. We've caught up with our elephants. We've tried to position ourselves in a way that we can get the herd walking past. And that was a big bull that we had walking past there. Quite big tusks, big forehead. But the rest of the herd is slowly making their way through over here. When you look at a female or an elephant from the front and you see the eyes, it's quite broad by the eyes, and then where the tusks come out of the head there, it's very narrow. Now the male, even when a male's 20, those tusks, where they emerge from the head, are almost the same level as the eyes. So you can see how much more narrow her tusks are on the face versus the eyes. So quite easy to identify females from looking at the front. Young males, though, sometimes it's difficult, but often behavior is a lot to go with. So Craig and I are sitting here in the open, hoping the elephants are going to come closer.
So we managed to get that antlion out of the hole just to show everyone. So I mean, he is quite quick, this one. So I'll try just to position my hand so you can see him. So he's right over here. But you'll see quite a big abdomen. And if you look at right in the front here, you'll notice those two pinches that we were talking about earlier. He goes onto this side. So I know it is hard because he is moving to try and get, and they're so small. I mean, look at the size of him in comparison to my hand. So what I'm going to do from here, I'm going to put him back in his hole so he can settle back in. It won't take him too long, up to 8 minutes, just to dig his funnel. And then hopefully we can see what other amazing animals we can see.
So I'm glad Nikki got an antlion for you. It's really cool. There's actually not that many of them around at Tswalu at the moment, just because of the conditions that we're in at the moment, in the deep part of winter. But what we do have here, and again it's inactive, it's out of the breeding season, is a colony of wattled starlings. Well, actually a nesting site of wattled starlings. And we won't pan over to them now, but scattered right through these bush clumps, right across to this side over here, there's a whole lot of other nests as well. But it's just really nice to see this. A lot of your starlings just nest in pairs, in holes in trees and that kind of thing. But this is actually a social nesting species, and these are very, very twiggy nests. They use actually quite robust nesting material, and you'll even get a number of pairs that will join together to actually make one of these nesting balls, and it can have multiple entrances and multiple chambers inside there. But for a bird that is so common through southern Africa, when you go through the literature, they actually talk about the chicks, the youngsters, as being undescribed. So, and that always fascinates me. And the really exciting thing about this, or reading stuff like that, is just the fact that on our doorsteps, wherever you may be in the world, there's something to be discovered. It can be the most common, the most mundane, well, apparently mundane. I don't think anything's mundane, but the most common species to people, and you'll actually be surprised just how little we know about these things. So Michael's asked a really good question there in terms of the ecology of these systems, and it doesn't, and we're actually on the milder end of the spectrum. But the question there is, do any of these animals have any adaptations to survive in these cold environments in the winter? Here's a little African monarch. Don't worry about him, but it's just a monarch butterfly. In a month's time, I'm going to be going into butterflies with you, because then there's going to be lots of butterflies out. So a lot of the animals have got adaptations, but the adaptations are a lot more behavioral than actually physical. Some of them, in fact, there's more animals here with very, very good adaptations to protect them against heat than they have got to protect them against cold. And cold you can often find shelter for, because very often what we've experienced over the past number of weeks is often your ambient temperature is okay. It's when you're getting caught in the wind. That wind is what bites and goes right through you. So if you're an animal, as long as you can get out of cold wind or windy conditions, then it's normally tolerable. The challenge is heat. And so a lot of animals here are really well adapted to heat. They've got all sorts of physiological adaptations, carotid rete, they've got white bellies to reflect sunlight, but then they also orient, so their behavioral adaptations are probably more important in that they'll actually orientate their body to get the least radiation on them. They'll go underground, to get the benefits of that ameliorating effect, buffering effect from high and low temperatures as well.
Adaptation, Dylan, is everything, is it not? Wonderful how we can have similar animals across the country and to adapt slightly differently in different environments. But here we are with the Savannah elephant in the Greater Kruger National Park. And I just love spending time with these guys. We've repositioned ourselves to a point where the whole herd is going to be surrounding us soon. So I'm just going to be quiet for just a moment so you can just hear the sounds of feeding. You want to know if elephants get calloused as well? I suppose they do. Their feet are walking all the time, and they do have very tough feet underneath. I think that's developed over time. When they're born, their feet are probably quite soft. The skin is quite soft, so elephants' feet are a pretty solid base for them to walk on. So yes, I suppose they do, but I don't think they have the ability to do anything about that. Each of their feet will wear down as it walks across the ground, doing what it's naturally supposed to do across rocks. Wonderful learned behavior, that. Feeding on the grass, ripping it up to access the roots and then hitting against the body to get the nutrients out of the roots. Pranav, the trunk of an elephant is incredibly powerful. There's over 100,000 muscles in there, and I'm sure as they get older it gets heavier, which would make it stronger and more powerful. I've seen an elephant flick a lion in the face with its trunk, and the lion weighing 160 kilograms did about 3 backward somersault rolls on the floor before stopping. So I think they're incredibly powerful, full of muscle to lift it up, muscle to turn it left, turn it right, muscle to curl it up, and muscles inside to contract the tubes, which are the nostrils, for sucking up water. And also very delicate at the same time. Very pliable, and a very well adapted sort of nose, I suppose. We're going to be spending a bit more time these elephants as we watch them feed. Hello, old faithfuls. Wonderful herd of elephants here, and I do believe Fang is in the herd. Very big herd. Number of individuals together. And Craig was asking me if Fang was still around, and I'm almost certain she is. Did something happen that I don't know about? Please let us know. Saw a female with a tusk that looked just like hers, so very relaxed female. Those of you who don't know who Fang is, she's got a tusk that points almost completely down and sort of cuts across underneath her tusk, or her trunk. Looks a bit awkward. It's growing a little bit funny. I think we should reposition, Craig? What do you think? Very good idea. We're in such a good spot. And now the Illies are moving that way, so we'll move around to try and intercept them.
We are so lucky. We've just come across this little group of meerkats. So we must have hundreds of these little colonies scattered right across the reserve. But not all of them are habituated. I mean, this reserve is immense. And so we really focus on a couple of core groups. So this is not one of the habituated groups, but it's still so good to see them. And what I'm interested in here is the fact that this is very unlikely to be the burrow system where they'll actually be going down for the evening. So this is actually a group of meerkat that's currently out foraging, which is really nice to see. They've got quite a bit of good cover here. There's these little scattered clumps of bush that they can get to in the event of a raptor or being chased by a land-based predator. And they'll also know where all the bolt holes. So there's that one still sitting here. He's just moving across to the left there now. And there come look at that. There's the rest of the group. How fantastic is that to see? So I'm going to guess that at that tree with those little mounds of sand that they're standing on, that's probably a number of bolt holes. So a bolt hole, it is a burrow, same as the normal burrows, but it's normally just used in the event of any kind of attack by a predator. Then they just know where these little bolt holes are and they run down them. The important thing is that they also keep maintaining those right through their territory. So they'll have an intimate knowledge of where all these little bolt holes are, and they'll maintain them. Because, if a wildcat pops out, when the wildcat pops out that we'll be seeing just now, then these little guys can't start wondering, okay, which direction am I going to run to get to safety? They know exactly where to go. Kerry says, the way they stand is so adorable, and it really is. And apart from being adorable, it's super efficient and effective at giving them a little bit more clearance to look out for any kind of threat. You'll see a little bird approaching into the screen there now. It's just popped up past the meerkat. For those birders out there, that is called an ant-eating chat. And they actually also nest underground. Remember the shell ducks that we've been following? And I just want to remind everything because, we can't be doing this without the cameraman, but Davy is probably the first person ever to get footage of a South African shell duck on camera.
Awesome stuff. Those meerkats are so adorable. From something so small to these beautiful big elephants having a drink here down at Twin Dams in the south. Let's just watch and listen for a little bit.
X6.
Game Drive Radio again. Tian's a very interesting question. Can an elephant smell while its trunk is drinking? It can smell, just like you can smell a kind of smell when you're drinking something. And that's because the actual olfactory senses are still working, but it will be able to smell the water. It can't really smell the air while its trunk is in the water. That's because the trunk is the nose and the upper lip fused. those senses, taste and smell, are very closely associated. And elephants have an excellent sense of smell. They can actually smell whether a plant is giving off lots of volatile compounds, compounds that are protecting the plant. Not tasty smelling things, basically. They can smell those even before they start to eat. So they can decide whether they want to eat this tree or not before they actually taste it. Elephants love water. There's a youngster just at the end there whose trunk is very short. Obviously, there was an accident when it was younger. That's why it's got to get a little bit deeper into the water to drink like the adults do. It's amazing to watch how, even with that injury, they're still able to function. Now this is not bad. Some elephants have shorter trunks than even this one, from maybe it being bitten by something. But they will lack those finger-like protrusions that allows the elephant to pick a single leaf off a tree, so that may be problematic. Tailor-made. You'd like to know if these animals ever recover from these sorts of injuries. They will heal, most definitely, but they will not grow back any of those parts. So with this animal, the trunk has lots and lots of muscles, about 50,000 different muscles in that trunk, so it can still use that trunk well, but will lack those finger-like protrusions that I spoke to you about just now. So it can still suck up water, great, it can still pull leaves, but in order to be very precise with its feeding, it will be quite difficult, but they will heal. You can see that the trunk is quite stocky because the way it tapers down, that bit is lost. Now with animals that have much shorter trunks, that have sustained maybe a lion or something like that, jumping onto it and biting that trunk, perhaps when it was a youngster, less likely when it's an adult, you'll find that they will actually get down on their knees when they need to feed or when they need to drink. So they adapt to a lifestyle with a shorter trunk. But it does mean that the quality of that animal's life is slightly diminished because it doesn't have the same type of precision that the elephants with the protrusions at the end of the trunk and a longer trunk will have. Rosalind, you'd like to know if the elephant with the shorter trunk would suffer long-term side effects? That would depend. They have a trigeminal and a maxillary nerve running down their trunk, so perhaps if there's nerve damage, it will suffer with some pain. But the nerve ends should also heal at that part, but we wouldn't be able to tell if there's long-term damage internally because we can't really test that. But that's a very interesting thought. But you can see it still uses its trunk, much like the adults do. Oh, these beautiful sounds. Nothing more pleasant than watching elephants drink. Hi, Obajan. You'd like to know if an elephant tears its ear, will it bleed? Most definitely. There's lots and lots of blood pumping through the elephant's ear. That's what helps them cool down. As the hot blood pumps through, it gets cooled down by the thin skin on the underside of the ear, and then goes back into its body as cool blood. So it most definitely will bleed, and probably quite a lot. I haven't seen it myself. Oh, the best sounds ever. Look at this. This largest cow looks like she's got shoes on with the muddy feet. That's just gorgeous. You are very, very fashionable indeed. Look at this very fashionable elephant. It's got some mud shoes on. It probably knew it was going to be on TV today. Oh, it's a lovely male. Hello, gorgeous big bull. Having a bit of a tussle. How did you manage to get those shoes? I didn't get shoes like that. He's not going to tell the other one the secret. Definitely not. This is happening live, everyone, from several locations in Africa, South Africa. Nothing better than the quintessential African elephant having a drink at a dam. Now this looks like actually a group of males. 3 large males and the smaller fellow with the shorter trunk. Now that smaller fellow would be following these guys. To learn the ropes, he would have been kicked out from his natal herd. About time. Now he's hanging out with the big boys to learn the ropes. Love our guide. You'd like to know, do elephants ever get stuck in mud? Yes, they can. Many animals can get stuck in mud, especially when it's really waterlogged and it appears to look dry. But in fact, it is very, very soft. And they can slip right in. Look at that. It can be quite a distressing thing to see animals stuck in mud because there's nothing they can do, and they don't have the ideas that we do about how to get out, getting on your back and creating a large surface area. They just panic. It can be very distressing for them and to watch. Can you hear that? That's the knocking of the tusks of these two guys. Margaret, you'd like to know what's wrong with that elephant's eye? Let's have a look at which one you're looking at. Right, one Ellie looks actually to be blind in one eye. There we go. Can you see that it is opaque? Once the cornea stops receiving oxygen, it can become opaque like that. There's also scar tissue that forms if it's been actually physically damaged. Which also adds to that opaqueness. Looks like they've had enough. Our fashionable Ellie is giving us a great view of those muddy shoes as it walks through your frame now. Lovely, lovely, lovely. Nothing better for me than an elephant sighting at a waterhole.
So from one elephant sighting to another, look at how this little group of elephants have slowly started moving a bit into the water just to have a drink. Such a beautiful afternoon at this particular waterhole, and even if we are a little bit quiet now, you might even hear as these elephants are drawing up the water into their trunks, putting it into their mouth and flowing that water into their mouth. Rosalind, with elephants in particular, so it all depends on the size of the elephant, but a big elephant bull can drink as much as nearly 200 liters of water in a single go. And that's quite a bit. I mean, with these ones we're looking at now, so let's say that youngster there, I'll probably reckon close to maybe 60, 70 liters. One of the bigger elephants just off to the right might also be just over 100, maybe 110, maybe close to 100. So it all depends on how big the elephant would be and when last they had some water. So I can imagine with them, they probably had water the day before, maybe even this morning. Some of them looked like, earlier on, it looked like there was a little brush of mud on their back. So there's a good chance that they could have visited either yesterday, early this morning, and now they've come back to drink. They might even just been meandering in this area, feeding as they went along, and eventually came back to water. Because also in the wintertime, you find the plants that the elephants need to eat, all the grass, is a lot drier in comparison to summertime. So often they do need to consume quite a bit of water in order to help break down the food. If you look at that little one there, and you look at the size of the tusks, you can see the tusks are probably just the fist, almost the length of one's hand, or maybe half a hand. So I'm sure by just judging the size of the elephant and those little tusks, that little one's not even older than 3 years. And the mom might be, it's hard to see, could be one of those two. And now she's just following around. And still at this age, you'll be able to suckle. So that will probably happen for the next year, year and a half. But for now, I think he's just more enjoying this beautiful water and also having a nice drink.
And so are these ones. Couldn't be happier to share this beautiful sighting with you all. We saw a bit of tussling, heard some tusks knocking together. They've just been giving us a great show. Thank you very much, beautiful elephants. The sound of that water is just amazing. Well, it is that time where we have to say goodbye, and thank you for all your questions and your comments. This has been a wonderful live safari with you all. And remember, if you want to continue watching, follow these elephants, follow whatever else we find this afternoon, go on to YouTube, type in Wild Earth, and you can continue to watch. But bye from us for now.
Wild Earth relies on support from viewers like you to carry on broadcasting our daily live shows. A small donation goes a long way in helping us on our mission to connect the world with nature. Please visit our support page to see how you can help and become part of the Wild Earth family.
Hello, all our regular viewers. How nice to have you all on board. As usual, we're still sitting with this gorgeous bachelor herd. They're just lovely. Very lovely indeed. Hello, everyone. You know it's me. It's Trishala, and I've got Theo on camera. It's TNT yet again. And we are very much enjoying our sighting here. In fact, as I'm looking at you guys, because when I'm looking through the camera, I think it's you guys, I can actually see the movement of the water, the shadow of the water, and the reflection is very nice. Lovely. Well, this one is having the time of its life. It's just sprayed itself in the face. All of them go around testing each other with their trunks by reaching through the undercarriage and then putting that into the vomeronasal organ. Carol K, you say that elephant sightings give you such a sense of peace. They do it to me too. So in your honor, Carol K, let's keep quiet and let's just get some peacefulness from it and enjoy the beautiful scene. Oh, now I see the arrival of a breeding herd. Let's see how this goes. This is a very popular watering hole, obviously. Wow, so many of them. That herd would have already known that these males are around here. They're always communicating. Hi Shivani, you'd like to know if different herds of elephants ever gather together? They will, especially when resources are quite low or depleted. If there's one watering hole, they'll gather together. And also, breeding herds are in the same area, same wide area, are generally related. So they will know each other even if they haven't seen each other in a long time. Maybe a herd broke apart because they were very large. But they will still know each other and see each other at watering holes when resources are really low. And you'll find them gathering together in large groups. Just enjoy this. This is wonderful. So many elephants all drinking together. It's about 20 or so. Hi, Polar Bear. You'd like to know how do they decide who goes to which herd when they split up? And it's not really a decision. An older female may decide that she's got several offspring and now she's got some grand offspring too. And she'll decide to take them off to another section or walk in a separate direction. So there still is a matriarch. These two boys sizing each other up here. But they will still associate with the herd that they have broken off from. They're not really broken off, it's sort of like moving out of home. They'll still see each other. They still know each other, they'll still be pleasant towards each other, but they just occupy a slightly different space. And elephants are always moving to find food and water. So all of them are all over the place. And you get cycles almost. And because of that, we always say elephants have great memory because they remember which water holes are the last ones to dry up. I'll make sure I'm there at the end of winter. That was beautiful. Really, really enjoying myself. I hope that you are too. It's lovely to have a look kind of at all of them enjoying themselves. You'll see that well, many of them have these fashionable shoes now, these booties, after stepping into the dam, that muddy bottom. Look at that. They're making me thirsty. Oh, this one's got some high tops. Trendsetter here. The other one had the low tops. What will the rest of the herd go for?
Welcome back, everybody. You've joined us at just the right moment. Look at what Marcel and I have managed to find. I know it's not the best view for now, but if you look very carefully just to the right of that dead stick in the middle of your screen, you'll see a big shiny grey object. It is one of 2 black rhino that are busy browsing through the dead sticks on the hillside here. How exciting is this, everybody? We've been trying so hard now for a couple of shows to try and find you some more black rhino, and at long last. I know for now it's not the best view, but if we're patient, we might be rewarded. It's actually quite funny because Marcel and myself were sitting here and we were watching some white rhinos that were grazing quite close to the vehicle, and we just saw that same shiny kind of grey colour that I spoke about just now. We had a look over, and through the binoculars we were able to see those very prominent or very noticeable round ears, and then of course we could see the head was up, but there wasn't that big bunched up mass on the back of the neck that would tell you it's a white rhino. Very, very, very exciting, everybody. And look at how the one on the left looks slightly smaller than the one on the right. It looks like a mother and her almost grown calf. And they're both staring at us currently. See how those ears are facing towards us? They're listening very carefully. Oh, they're moving. Look at how they're lifting their heads. Coming straight towards us. Still far away, but it'll just be so special if they come out into this bit of open clearing here, so that we can get a really good look at them. But look at the one on the left now. Look at how it's adopted that very typical black rhino posture. Its head lifted and staring off to the left. And there's that silhouette that I was talking about, where there's no bunched up mass of muscle on the back of the neck. One of the ways we can tell a black rhino from this distance. Now, with black rhino being animals that typically prefer to spend time in thicker bush, being out in the open like this now might make them a little bit wary. They are typically quite shy and reclusive animals. And if you will, excitable or easily agitated. So any strange sounds or smells will elicit a reaction from them. So that's why I know it may sound like I'm talking quite loudly, but I'm whispering. The microphone is quite close to my face, being as quiet as possible. The wind is also blowing across us, so it's going over our backs, blowing straight towards these black rhino. So they'll no doubt be able to smell us. I think from this distance, I don't think they'll be able to hear us, just based on how quietly we're talking. This is just so exciting though, everybody. These rhinos must have been resting, so just behind them there's a bit of a thicket. So they must have been resting in there during the heat of the day, and now with the sun slowly starting to set, they seem to have come out. Black rhinos being often a bit more nocturnal than white rhinos. This is a time of day that we often see them starting to get active. See how they're now kind of just milling around. And now the mother's turned to face away from us. But look how she's still turning her ears back to listen in our direction. No doubt, with the wind blowing, our scent is still being wafted over towards her. Very, very, very special. Now a calf that size has surely, just looking at how big it is compared to its mother, has surely not got very much longer left with its mother. She may right now be pregnant with her next calf, and shortly I would imagine that younger one is going to be pushed away, and it's going to have to go and make its own way in the world. From here, very tough to see. I can't even see from here if it's a male or a female, that little calf. Seanak, you're asking if these black rhinos can sense us through the wind. Seanak, most definitely. So the wind blowing from us towards them is going to be carrying our smell towards them. And so they'll be able to smell our scent on the wind. How incredible is that, Seanak, to think that, I mean, they're probably standing, maybe 400 meters away or so, maybe even, probably somewhere around 400 meters away. And they can probably smell us from here with the breeze blowing towards them. That's how incredibly sharp their sense of smell is. If we were talking very loudly as well, the wind might also carry our sound a little bit towards them. But like I said, we're being very quiet, so that's unlikely to happen. And that's why whenever we are taking guests out on foot to try and view rhinos, we always have to make sure that we're always downwind of the rhino so that our scent doesn't get wafted onto them and they don't smell us. This is so special, everyone. We're going to spend a bit of time here. I'm really hoping that they turn around and come back towards the road. So we're going to wait and see what happens.
Hopefully Damon will be able to get a better view of those rhinos, but there's just such a beautiful scene here. So there's a big herd of impala that's moving off right in front of us. Now, the one that we have in the middle screen is of course a male, so the females don't have the horns and the males have those beautiful horns. But the whole area, there's this massive beautiful open area just near this water, but there's so many animals here. So we have the impala that's right over in this direction where we're looking in now. But then I can also see off to our right and in front of us there's a big giraffe as well as some wildebeest. Now, we might not be able to get the best of views of them, but hopefully what we can do is after we have a look at these impala, we can definitely try and see if we can get another glimpse of them. Now, right ahead of us there, have a look at that beautiful giraffe in the distance. But just what I want you to do is when you look at this whole scene, I want you to take in the beauty of the environment as a whole. I mean, how all these animals are in the same area. I mean, the wildebeest, the impala, the giraffe, and I can just imagine with all of them being here, how safe they would feel because of all the different species. There's more eyes, more ears, the safer they would feel. And then just behind us, you'll notice there's even some blue wildebeest in this area here. And you'll find with areas like this, especially at night and late afternoon into the evening, is that some of the more common animals like the wildebeest, the impala, the giraffe, they will tend to gather in these open areas because they also do feel a lot safer, especially if they have a big area that they can scan. So as soon as there's any predator that moves over an open area, they'll be able to spot it and then from there on move away from it. But what I think we'll do from here is maybe let's go have a closer look at that giraffe that's not too far away from here. It does look like it's staring in a direction, might be because there's other giraffes in the area, possibly even some impala, but let's go have a closer look. But I just enjoy like afternoons like this. It makes me so excited because it's just so beautiful and you just never know what you're going to find. I mean, this afternoon we went out, we said, okay, we're not necessarily just going to focus on lion and leopard, we're going to see what is out there and just hopefully capture all of that for all the viewers to have a look at. But just coming back to this beautiful open area here, so with the soil here, there's a lot of black cotton soil, so I'm sure because of that there's a lot of nutrients, and so the grass here must be a lot sweeter, and that's why it's also attracting quite a few of the animals into this area. So I'm just going to move over here just so that we can still see that giraffe, but then just want to capture what we're looking at here. Dan, my all-time favorite insect would probably, well, if you give me just 1 or 2 seconds, I'll think about it. But it has to be maybe a antlion. I'm just thinking there's a lot of beautiful butterflies. There's a lot of amazing insects like dung beetles, and which are all pretty much high up in my books. But I think an antlion is probably one of my favorite. I think it all comes down from, I remember as a kid, we always used to be so fascinated by them. Whenever we did any walk, we would see these hollow this funnel within the ground, and never knew exactly what it was only until later. So it always fascinated me as a kid. So that's why I would say that's probably my favorite. But with all the animals, it's hard. I mean, sometimes I mentioned that the zebra is definitely my favorite, and then with the predators, it has to be the cheetah. But basically, I would say on every drive, my favorite animal is always the next one, or the current one we're looking at, and then next one. I do enjoy their colors. Look at that beautiful dead leadwood in the back, and then you notice the contrast of the impala, these beautiful antelope with their almost like a golden brown with a little bit of a lighter brown white belly, the contrast with the green in the back. And of course then that beautiful leadwood tree that just stands out amongst all the small shrubs and trees. I'd like to see if we can possibly get another glimpse of that giraffe. So it is slowly moving away from us. There's no guarantee. But what I'd like to do is after we've just had another glimpse of these impala, I would really like just to carry on and see maybe if we can get another glimpse of them. They're also just such majestic animals, especially being able to see them out in the open. But have a look at the colors now, especially with the sun between us and this impala. Particularly, you are able to do that, especially with the older ones, like this particular male here. There might be, because of all the fighting, there could be quite a few scars. It might be that he could have certain facial features, maybe a certain horn structure. You'll be able to do that. So there are quite a few individuals that we sometimes see. Just want to have a look at these impalas crossing, but The giraffe is not too far away from you. We're going to slowly carry on in this direction. You'll just see with impala, sometimes, whenever one of them starts running, all of them would start moving. We'll just give them some time. We don't really want to split them up, just so that they can cross and then from there, see if we can get another glimpse of that giraffe. Around in this area, you'll probably be looking around 10, maybe 12 years with these impalas. I mean, in captivity, it might be a lot longer than that, but round about, that's going to be the age span within this area. Now, what's very interesting is that when this whole area was initially established, this whole conservation area here, there were barely impalas in this area. And now their numbers have grown so much because they are mixed feeders. They are able to eat grass, they're able to eat leaves, and so they can combine their diet, where some animals can only eat leaves or only eat grass. And so they're very limited in their range of where they can move from. But impalas are very successful with that. And so they've done really well in moving up into this area. And of course, if you are looking out for other predators like possibly cheetah, leopard, even wild dogs, these are some of the animals that they could potentially go for. And hence, that's why they always alert these impalas, keeping their heads up, scanning around, seeing if there's any danger. And also sometimes even being with the other animals like the giraffe, like the wildebeest, like the zebra, that could also help them look out for any potential threats. But for now, let's slowly carry on. As I mentioned, that giraffe is not too far away from here. Be nice to get another glimpse. See if it's a male or female. Maybe even see if there's other giraffes with it, or is it just by itself? So I wonder how many other giraffes could be here. I'm just wondering, because it's one that we've seen, maybe it could be a bull that's all by himself. There could be a chance that he is going to join up with a herd. So I'm just going to take it nice and slow. The road is a bit bumpy here. Now the last time I saw that giraffe is moving off to the right. So I'm just going to slowly carry on through this particular section and just scan. Giraffe, with the giraffes, what we have seen though is, so in the summertime they're pretty scattered across quite a variety of different vegetation types, but during the winter time a lot of the vegetation within this area, a lot of the bigger trees start losing their leaves. So what actually occurs then is the giraffes will then move to areas where there's a lot more water. Because of an area with a lot more water, the chances are there's going to be bigger trees with possibly leaves on them. And what we've noticed, especially in this area here, is that the giraffe are currently feeding on a tree known as Tomburti. But how beautiful is this as a scene? I mean, we just came around the one bend here to look for this giraffe, and here we welcomed with a whole herd of wildebeest and, of course, my favorite animal, the zebra. Now, often wildebeest and zebras are seen together, and the question is asked, like, why are they, especially if you look at the Great Migration, if you look at some movements of animals within southern Africa, you'll notice a lot of giraffe and wildebeest are often seen together. Now, with wildebeest, they're like cows, they have a 4-chamber stomach, and zebra don't have a 4-chamber stomach, so whatever they eat, it goes right through the system and eventually comes out on the other end. So they don't need as a nutritional diet as in comparison to that of a wildebeest, because a wildebeest will then, whatever it feeds off, it will chew, regurgitate, break it down, and then from there it works through the different stomach chambers until eventually into the true stomach and then work out from there. So what the zebra would often do is they will feed off the taller bits of grass. That would allow, or that would open up the shorter grass, which is often a lot more nutritious in comparison to that, or comparison to the taller strands of grass. And that's where the wildebeest come in. So you'll notice with the zebra, some of them might have their heads pretty close, but you'll notice that they always, whenever they feed, look at that one right in the middle, you'll see it's always this tall strands of grass that they could go for. Sometimes they'll go, if there's not a lot of grass or taller grass, or there's more nutritional or sweeter grass close to the bottom, they'll even eat that. But often these two animals are seen together. And because of the different types of uses within the environment, they're able to benefit from that. But definitely majestic animals, especially these zebras with that tinge of golden light on their mane.
We unfortunately had to leave our two black rhinos. They decided to lie down exactly where they were standing, and when that happened, they all but disappeared into the long grass. But not to worry, being in these open rolling plains, all that we needed to do was take out our binoculars and scan around, and we managed to spot two white rhinos. How special is that, everyone? Two black rhinos and two white rhinos within half an hour of each other this afternoon. And they are luckily a little bit closer than the black rhinos were. You can see them a little bit clearer. And different to the black rhino that were kind of milling around and staring. Look at how these rhinos are busy feeding. And we spoke earlier about the importance of the wind and the importance of a rhino's sense of smell. See how they're busy feeding into the wind so that they can use that sense of smell to their advantage and smell whatever may be up in front ahead of them. But before we get too far into that, everybody, I heard that you were talking about zebra manes with Nikki. Well, before we get there, Kosada, you're asking how big a black rhino's territory is. Kosada, in this part of South Africa, it's normally between about 500 and 3,000 hectares. That is the rough average size for a black rhino's territory, but it will depend on the availability of food, the availability of water, and the terrain. But sorry, quickly coming back to, I believe you were talking about zebra manes with Nikki, and this morning Ashley from North Carolina, you asked me a question about why zebras have got manes that stand up, whereas horses have got manes that are floppy, that are long and blow in the wind, and they're longer and they don't stand up straight. And I went and did a bit of research. Actually, I hope that you're watching. And what I found was that so there was a couple of speculations as to why the mane stands up. There were some theories that it perhaps makes it more difficult for a zebra to get caught up in bushes. If the mane was floppy and long, it might get caught up in bushes. But also, in the case of zebras, the mane is often an indicator of the health of an animal. If the zebra's mane is standing up, it means that it's got good fat deposits under its skin, because it's the fat deposits that hold the mane up. And as soon as a zebra starts to lose condition, it loses that fat and the mane flops down, and that's a telltale sign that the zebra is sick or in poor condition. And so that can help, I suppose, if a predator saw it looking like that, it might then be able to determine that zebra is a particularly weak target. But also with most domestic horses, most of them have been selectively bred to have their manes to be like that. Over years and years and years of selective breeding. Because looking at all the wild horses or the wild equids that occur around the world, like the wild horses in Europe and Asia, and then of course the zebras and the wild ass that live in the north of Africa, they all have manes that stand up. So I hope that answers your question a bit better, Ashley. But back to these rhinos. Look at that little oxpecker that's now sitting on the back of that rhino on the left, hitching a ride. Oh my goodness, everyone, I don't know if you can see this, but have a close look at that rhino on the left. If you look very carefully, look on its flanks, just in amongst those lines. I don't know if you can see, there's a bit of a black smudge. It almost looks like pepper that's been sprayed against the side of that rhino there. And it's flies that are sitting on that rhino that will be looking for moisture. It's a big cloud of them, and I'm sure that if that rhino, those are all flies, believe it or not, everybody. If that rhino were to suddenly start to run, it would be quite something to watch this black cloud lift off of that rhino. And interestingly enough, just speaking about flies and seeing the fly on this rhino, there's a, I don't know if any of you have ever heard about, there's a kind of botfly that occurs here in Southern Africa, and it's called a rhinoceros stomach botfly, and it's the biggest fly in Africa. I don't think that any of those are the botflies, but what it does is that it lays its eggs on the horn of a rhino, and once the eggs hatch, the larvae work their way into the rhino's stomach. And in the stomach, they form these little, like, kind of pupa that bury into the lining of the stomach. And they live there until one day the rhino poops them out. And from there, they then emerge as a fly. But by the time they're fully grown, and by the time they're ready to pupate, that kind of cocoon or that pupa would fit in the palm of your hand. It's about 6 or 7 centimeters long. Yeah, quite horrific to think. But as our rhinos head off down the hill, I think we're going to maybe try and get a better view. And hopefully when we come back, or when you come back to us, we'll have a better view of these rhinos.
Perfect. Okay, so what I'm doing, I'm going to talk very, very softly, and we're not going to shift the camera at all. This is now round 2. A couple of weeks ago, maybe 3-4 weeks ago, Jeandre and I sat at this burrow and for an Artwolf, and I messed the sighting up completely. I was looking in the opposite direction, and anyway, I missed the sighting. So we are now sitting very, very quietly. Davy has the camera trained on the burrow, that the burrow is immediately in front of those bushes over there. So we're not going to budge at all until the end of the drive, and we're going to hope that one of these little guys pops out. Sorry, I just got the name Roslyn. I didn't get any question there. Sorry, if you can just please repeat that. Ah, okay. So the question is, are Artwolf rare? They're actually not rare. They cover they've got a very, very, very wide distribution. But in our area, they are fairly scarce. They occasionally you have really good sightings of them, but you've normally got to put in a bit of effort to find them. So I know this one is using this burrow on a regular basis. The problem is they can just shift burrows as well, so I'm taking a chance. But what I've done, we were quite sneaky. The wind is blowing from the burrow directly towards us. It's blowing straight into our face, which is brilliant, and we didn't even drive past it. We made a massive loop all the way around, about 1.5 kilometers down to the left of the burrow, and then all the way back and around. So we've really snuck up on this, and we're sitting at about 80 yards, 90 yards away from it, so we're a nice comfortable distance. The wind's in our favor, and I'm really, really hoping, and this time I'm not looking anywhere except at that burrow, because if that Artwolf comes out and I miss it, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm not going to be a happy camper. But yeah, so we're just going to stick it out here, and hopefully we're going to get you an Artwolf sighting this afternoon. If we don't, so be it. That's one of those things, but I think we just got to be patient on this one. The temperature's dropping nicely now. It's not cold. It's actually a lovely warm day now, but the temperature is dropping slightly, which becomes more and more favorable for these little guys, because they're eating mostly termites. A lot of these harvested termites, and they'll eat a couple of other little insects as well, but mostly harvested termites. And as the temperature drops, it's becoming better and better for harvested termites to be out and foraging on the soil surface, which in turn means that's the ideal time for the Artwolf to start popping out. The wind is now switched. As we're sitting here, the wind is now cutting from the right-hand side, crossing very gently across to our left-hand side, but still very, very good for us.
So from a big open area, we've moved into more of a dense area right near the river. So what we're trying to look out for now is possibly see if there's a chance of finding leopard. Because it is cooling down, possibly leopard or lion. But if we do see something else, definitely bonus. I just want to move back a bit, because earlier on we were talking about this Tomburti tree, and I know a lot of the viewers are probably wondering, what is this Tomburti tree? So I just want to quickly stop like this and just show there's a tree right over here on the right, or on my left, your right of the screen, once I get here. So if you look at this tree right over here, you'll notice there's something very interesting, is that some of the leaves are this red in color. Alright, so I'm just going to move like this because I think that area of the vehicle was just right in there. So this is the one currently that we find quite a lot of the giraffes and the kuris are feeding on at the moment. But what's really interesting about it, I just want to use my notebook just to show you this. So if I would pick a leaf of this tree, let me use something bigger, like maybe there's a couple of leaves I can grab together just to show. Oh, this is actually better. So as I tore one of the branches, you'll notice there's a little bit of white sap that's coming out of this tree. Now this is highly toxic to us. So if you had to be in the African bush and you had to make a fire with the wood from this tree, if this is not dried out, you could be very, very sick. Now, there's a theory that says because the animals are able to eat this, so let's say the kudu and giraffe eat it, because of that toxin, it actually helped to kill some of the internal parasites. Now, some of the locals in this area is known as the Shangaan people, and what they would do is if they had a toothache, they would basically take a droplet and then put it on their gums wherever the toothache might be, and it actually numbs it. Also, another thing you can do with this is you can actually catch fish with it. So imagine the gills of fish work like if you had to take long hair and move it through the water. So basically what happens, let me just move this out of the way so I don't get any of that on me. So basically what will then happen is with those gills, as they move through the water, they catch little bits of oxygen, and that's how a fish is then able to, or capable from there on, to breathe. But with this, as soon as you crush the leaves and you put it in water, what will happen, it will actually join the gills together, and because of that, the fish isn't able to breathe, and then they'll suffocate and then come up to the surface. And some of the tribes will then use that method in order to catch the fish, cut off their heads, and then, of course, they'll have food to eat. But a very interesting tree to work with. You have to be so careful not to get any of this into your eye, or try and make any fire with this and inhale that smoke, or even into your food. But it is an interesting tree. I just thought I wanted to share that with some of our viewers because we were chatting about the Tomburti tree.
Welcome back. We are sitting here near Lamb with this beautiful, and they are biscuits and relaxing around us, and we've just sat with them for basically the whole drive so far. It's been wonderful. There's some very young ones just over there which are playing with each other, and one of them actually is very interesting. Gert pointed out he's slightly leucistic. It's got pink eyes and very, very pink skin around his ears and on his flanks there. He's being protected by the mother at the moment, probably from the sun, because he'll get sunburned easily. But if you just see that one with his head sticking out, that one there is slightly leucistic. It's very, very strange. Now in the shade you can't see it so nicely, but actually has very, very pink eyes and skin all around, but it's difficult to see in the shade, but nonetheless very cute. And we actually saw a larger one, apparently. Gert saw one about maybe 10 years old, also with this pink skin. So it's very unusual for an elephant, because of course when they've got a lot of skin, if they don't have pigment, they get sunburned really easily. And so it's very very unusual to have an elephant with leucism. It was I don't know if you heard that in the background. There's an elephant having a good time, releasing some pressure, let's put it that way. Slowly heading towards Leopard Dam. So we're going to just keep basically following them. It's amazing to be sitting here, letting them, or they are letting us just be part of them. They've been all around us. We've had young males come and investigate us. The babies have come over to investigate us. Oh, it's spectacular. And this little young thing over there is so tiny. It's carrying a stick. It's playing fetch. So this tiny little thing was also doing a bit of trunk training. Earlier, I was watching the adult elephants twirling their trunk around the grass and plucking it, and it started to try and do the same, but it tried to have a handle on it, and it kind of all of its trunk and just started doing a bit of a windmill, and almost could imagine it saying, "How do I stop this thing? How do I stop this thing?" It was very comical. come into the sunlight. I really want that other small one to come into the sunlight so we can really see that pinkness around its eyes. Really strange, really unusual. Have any of you ever seen a leucistic animal, an animal which has less pigment on its skin? So maybe white lions or melanistic leopards, dark ones? You let us know.
Geez, it was brilliant. That Artwolf just came out in the open with the tiny little cubs. It was walking around, the pups, it was walking around, and then it looked at us, and then it went back, it shook its head and went back down again. No, I'm just kidding. There was, don't panic, we have not seen an Artwolf yet. We haven't seen an Artwolf yet. But we will if we're patient. Just talking about leucistic animals, we actually see these interesting color varieties on Tswalu on a not infrequent basis. With a number of melanistic species, we've seen Melanistic Jackal here, and we've seen leucistic jackal. So your very light form, your very dark form, melanistic goshawks. We've seen acacia-pied barbets, leucistic acacia-pied barbets. We've seen odd-coloured spotted eagle owl. So there's some really interesting colour varieties that we get in this area. But I've yet to see, but of course the challenge with being leucistic and melanistic to a lesser extent is, but particularly leucism, is you really stand out. And in this kind of environment, you really don't want to be standing out. You know, it just kind of like paints a big target on your back. And there's probably a reason why these things are so uncommon. You know, that gene keeps on getting weeded out of the population, you know, when it pops up. But it is interesting how it pops up in certain species more regularly than others, like these Kabar goshawks with a melanism. It's not uncommon that we see them here, these melanistic varieties. And again, sorry, I'm just talking without the camera coming to me or looking around. It's just we need to focus everything that we got on that little spot that Darby's got the camera on now, because that's where that Artwolf will pop out. See, I'm being optimistic there. It's not if, it's when. And the wind is still good for us, and that's the key thing with these kind of things. If you're doing these little waits or sit-outs, stakeouts, it's really important to get the wind right. Good. Dizzy says, can I please mimic an Artwolf? Okay, I'm not going to do it now, just because we focused on this, but if you want, I can try to draw an Artwolf, which I think might give you a whole lot more entertainment, because you'll just see just how bad those drawing skills of mine really are. So I will start sketching one in the meantime, and you guys can all get your tissues ready, because you're going to need them. But yeah, so watch that spot for details. Eh? Right where Darby's got the camera, that's where that little puppy's going to come popping out. Well, it better. Yeah. So Jenna has asked, are Artwolf nocturnal? Yes and no. So remember I was talking about the harvester termites? So harvester termites are their primary or the key components of their diet. But the problem is harvester termites, they've got pigment. So a lot of termites don't have any pigment, so they've got to build these tunnels, these little sand tunnels that they stay inside in order to forage. Harvester termites have got pigment, so they don't need to build these tunnels. So they can actually forage on the surface of the sand. But the problem is they cannot tolerate high UV levels. So in other words, when it's hot and the sunlight's bright, they can't tolerate that. And then they're strictly nocturnal. So in other words, they're very active at night in the hot summer months, which means that the Artwolf will be coming out late at night. In winter, when these UV levels are much lower, the sun's not as harsh, these termites late in the afternoon can actually tolerate that level of sunlight, so that then they actually start foraging on the surface, and then the Artwolf actually shifts its behavior completely And that's when you start seeing them active in the daytime. The other species that we've seen that do the same or similar thing are Artwolf. You know, that big animal that looks kind of like a pig with a long tail and kangaroo ears, and the pangolin. So there's three really, really interesting what we call mimicochorus species. In other words, they're ant-eating species, and they can shift their behavior patterns. Bat-head foxes do the same thing. Bat-head foxes tend to be nocturnal, but in winter you'll often get them foraging out in the day for termites and other insects. It's so cool, eh? And so many of these things are actually driven more by temperature rather than being strictly nocturnal or diurnal. You get some species that they come out at night, game over. But a lot of these things are really driven by temperatures. So as temperature starts shifting, their behavior shifts. And that, I guess, is one of the key things with climate change, is what is the impact on the behavior of animals and their prey items and the plants that they feed on in the face of shifting climates, whether it's getting cooler or hotter. You know, there's sound evidence for which way it is going. But what does that mean for animals that have got a limited foraging time already in order to get enough energy in them to survive? Things like pangolin, Artwolf are two very, very good examples that are well studied at Tswalu. Nora Vea on Artwolf, Wendy Penena with pangolins, and we know there's tons of good solid evidence that these animals are facing huge, huge, huge challenges the hotter and drier these areas become. Where was I? I was drawing an Artwolf. I haven't started it because I'm cringing even thinking about trying to draw an Artwolf. Again, I have to apologize for all the Artwolf out there that may feel offended by what they end up looking like. This is a stylized representation of an Artwolf. No insult was intended to the species or the individual. That's my disclaimer.
Myself and Marcel have just come back to that spot where that black rhino and her youngster lay down, and she stood up again, everybody. You've joined us just in time. And she's still being super vigilant. Look how she's still looking around. I'm still hoping that she's going to maybe walk out of that patch of sticks that she's in and start to head, I really hope, towards us. I think that will be wishful thinking, but one can only hope. Interesting, just listening to the conversation you've been having with Dylan about the switching of species like aardwolves between being active in the daytime and at nighttime, depending on the time of the year. Not quite a diurnal, nocturnal shift, but something interesting that we might expect to happen in the coming months. At this time of year, there are often, well, with it being so dry, there are often fires in this part of South Africa, and parts of the reserve do get burnt in a controlled manner, just to help promote the health of the bushveld. And often when a fire goes through an area and it singes the trees, once the smoke has died out and once the fire has died out, we often find that species like these black rhino and often also elephant will move into those burnt areas and actually feed on the burnt tips and the burnt twigs of the burnt bushes. I suppose it's just like with sugarcane, when you burn sugarcane to help to get the sugars concentrated. Much the same thing with these burnt bushes. Because although the bush sometimes does look like it's been burnt into oblivion, if you break it open and you have a closer look inside, there's often, you can still see like live shoots and stuff inside and living plant matter. And so perhaps if there is a fire that comes through here in the coming months, we'll maybe be able to get to see some of that behavior. It often makes for good black rhino viewing as well. I mentioned earlier that because they're so secretive and because they like to live in dense bush, we don't get to see them very often. Certainly nowhere near as often as the white rhino. And if the felt is burnt and a bit more open, it's often a bit easier to spot them. But it looks like she's made a couple of steps in our direction. We just need her to take a few more. And for that youngster to follow along behind her. So alert, busy wheeling around and looking in all different directions. And so often that's the only view you get of a black rhino, is just those ears sticking up above the low-growing scrub. It can be quite an ominous sign if you're on foot and you just see these little ears swiveling above the bushes and there aren't any big trees to climb anywhere nearby. This is just so special, everybody. I know that they are quite far from us, but so special to spend some time with these black rhinos, especially since we've been trying so hard to try and find some. And it bodes well for us now. Like we said, the sun is starting to go down, so the later it gets, the more likely these rhinos are going to start to move. And I wouldn't be surprised if this cow leads her calf towards some water a little bit later this evening. Old, you're asking a very good question about body shapes of rhinos. You're asking if there's a difference in the body shape between a black rhino and a white rhino. And yes, there is, Old. And I think that to answer your question as efficiently as possible, I'm going to get an animal book out. If you'll bear with me just 1 second while I do that, because a picture is always a good, always good to have some kind of illustration. And there we go. So we'll start off, Old, with the black rhino. So here is the black rhino, and there is the size in comparison to a human being. And then a couple of the things. So look at how this rhino, when it walks with its head held out in front of it, and there's kind of just that big muscular neck there that runs smoothly from the shoulder towards the back of the head. Look at how there's a very deep saddle in the back of the rhino between kind of the shoulder and the pelvis. So those are pretty telltale signs on the whole. If you also look very closely, Old, look at the lip of this black rhino over there. It's not the best picture, but the lip is prehensile. It's got like a hook to the end, and that's because this rhino uses that lip to gather bushes and leaves and twigs and funnel them into its mouth. It's a browser, meaning it feeds on leaves and twigs. The white rhino, by comparison, is quite a bit bigger. So see, there it is compared to a human being, quite a bit larger. And then also, let's have a look at this picture here of this white rhino. Look at how when it stands with its head lifted, its neck forms, if it lifts its head, its neck forms a bunch of muscle between the shoulder and the back of the head. And that's, of course, when the rhino normally walks, kind of its resting or its neutral neck position will be with its head lower to the ground. And that's because this rhino feeds on grass. And so that's where its head needs to be most of the time. Also, to help with the feeding on the grass, look at that very square lip to help it to crop up lots and lots of grass in one go. So yeah, there's a couple of kind of physiological differences. Also, I spoke about the very deep saddle on the black rhino. Look at the saddle here of this white rhino calf. Look at how shallow it is from the shoulder to the back. It's much more shallow. So a couple of telltale differences that we can use to help us to differentiate between the two rhino species. It looks like that rhino cow is still much in the same position. She's got some beautiful golden light that's starting to fall on her in the sunset. And still looking at us suspiciously. I don't think this wind is helping us at all, blowing our scent straight towards her. And like I said earlier, often because of their habits of living in thicker bush, they can be quite kind of nervous. Love our guides, you're asking if black rhino and white rhino will fight with each other. Not normally, love our guides, because they typically, when animals fight, it's normally over mates or over food or over water or territory. And because black and white rhino are two different species and they feed on different things and they can't mate with each other, or naturally normally, they don't have any reason to fight. Every now and then though, I suppose, I haven't seen it myself, but I suppose if two bulls came up to each other that were super charged up on testosterone, maybe they had just caught the scent of an intruder, there may be a bit of an altercation between the two of them. But under normal circumstances, they don't have much reason to fight with each other. Oh, just cannot get enough of the sunset, everyone. Sir 50, you're asking how often do rhinos mate and if the mating sessions are very successful. Sir 50, they are pretty successful breeders, and if given a chance, if they're just given protection and a chance, they can repopulate an area quite quickly. In terms of how often they mate, so once a white rhino cow gives birth and she's raising her calf, she will, while she's still raising her calf, she will normally get pregnant again. She'll mate again with a male. And that's a process that it's not quite the same as with lions or with big cats where there's multiple copulations. It's normally just a kind of a once-off thing, but it's not a short bout like with a big cat. It's a bit of a longer session of mating, but just a once-off, normally just a once-off kind of event. Although the courtship that leads up to it can take quite a couple of days. I've read of up to 20 days where a bull has followed a cow around trying to kind of win her over, if you will. In terms of the success of actual matings though, to be honest, I do not know of the success rate from that, well, from mating to successful conception. So that is something I will have to get back to you on. I think these rhinos are teasing us, everyone. Every time I think that cow is going to lead her calf towards us, she turns around. They're now both facing west, and there's an absolutely magnificent sunset that's about to happen. Myself and Marcel, we've played the patience game for quite some time now, so we're going to play it for a bit longer. And hopefully when you all come back to us, these rhinos will have maybe come a little bit closer to the road, so we can get a slightly better view of them.
Talking about a beautiful sunset, it is just absolutely, the colors are amazing. So we are driving to another particular waterhole where we have seen leopard over the last few days, and just see if there's any other signs of them around. I mean, it's always nice to give it explore that area. So the whole section that we have been driving is more on the eastern side of the reserve, and we haven't seen any fresh tracks of lions or leopard in that area, or any of the other interesting animals we could possibly look out for. However, we decided let's go more the central part, so just drive up this road. We're heading in the westerly direction towards where the sun is setting, and hopefully there'll be some leopard around. That's what I'm hoping. What could be quite nice is finding a leopard, especially with this light and the colors that we can get from it. But any particular animal would be beautiful with it. But maybe we should make it our little goal for this afternoon, is to try and see if we can find a leopard. So just I'm sure it was one of the questions that Dylan had regarding leucistic animals, and what were some of the interesting ones that we could have seen. I mean, other than the lions that we do see quite often, the one that we saw, this was probably close to a month ago, we saw what looked like an atoll spurfowl that was completely leucistic. So it was completely white. We tried to get it on the camera, but it just quickly darted into the bush. But ever since, I haven't really seen another one here. Often you get a pale morph of different birds, but I reckon one of the most interesting ones that I've seen recently had to be that atoll spurfowl. There's this beautiful open area here. I thought I heard this bird. I'm gonna try see if we can get a glimpse of him. We might go forward and see if there's another view. But Owen, if you look at that, oh, there he goes. Oh, look! I think he might just drop down. So let's just see, that bird just landed there. It's quite far off. I'm gonna move forward a bit and see if we can get another glimpse. So this was the red-crested Korhan. Yeah, I think left we are now. A little bit more. Yeah, it's hard to see. It's just moving in that tall grass. But I don't know if everyone heard that clicking noise. I just want to quickly get my bird book out, and we'll just keep a lookout in that area, see if there's any other signs of that bird. But I definitely want to show all the viewers what we are looking at, or what we're trying to look at. And just quickly find it. So somewhere there's where we last saw this Korhan, but before, we'll try and see if we can get another glimpse, but I just want to quickly focus on here, just so that everyone can see. But if you look at this bird right over here, you'll notice there's quite a bit of red right over here, and the color is very similar to the grass. That's what's so difficult for us to spot. And the belly as well, quite black, so it looks like a lot of the shadows within the grass. But a lot of people refer to this red-crested Korhan as the suicide bird, because one of the displays, so the males, whenever they display for the females, will basically fly up into the air, and once they reach a certain point, they fold up the wings, and it looks like they're going to drop down towards the ground, and just before they hit the ground, they'll start flying again. Let's keep a good look at as we go. If we hear that clicking sound like click, 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 maybe we can see another red-crested Korhan. He's trying to hide away from us, making Owen's job a lot more difficult because he's so well camouflaged. And the thing is, if he moves in the grass, it's hard to see him, even with the naked eye, let alone trying to pan with the camera. But we're going to try and see if we can get another one. And often this time of the year, you might just hear them calling. It's getting to that time of the day as well. It's cooling down. Sounds can travel a lot further. You might hear some of the songbirds in the day that slowly starts fainting away, and then we might start hearing owls. We could hear this red-crested Korhan, fiery neck nightjars later on.
Okay, so we got here's a brief picture of an Artwolf. But we're not going to spend long on it, because there's an Artwolf, and it's even got the ants on the tongue. How cool is that? Anyway, but let's go back to the den site there, because that is where we need to have our focus. But we're going to keep, like I said, I don't want to lose concentration on this den site, because, yes, like I say, if that Artwolf pops out and I miss it, I'm going to be very bleak. Then I will need help after this game drive. But it's just so exciting, just sitting, waiting quietly. Just now we had a little yellow mongoose that actually walked out, but because we don't want to make any noise or disturbance, it walked straight past the Land Rover. Timothy has asked, do Artwolf make any noises? They've actually got quite a wide repertoire. They've got these very, very cute, soft, it's not like a growl, it's almost like a sound like that when they pups and they're calling the parents. And then they've got a number of it's almost like a very soft bark, for like the alarm calls. But when they're fighting as well, then there's a lot of growling and that kind of stuff. So yeah, so they can be quite vocal animals, but normally they're silent. I mean, it's not like the Artwolf like walks around whistling tunes to itself. You know, they're very, very quiet animals. I don't think any animals do that actually, now that I think about it. But yeah, so they're not very vocal, and they normally actually, interestingly, they forage by themselves almost entirely. It's very, very seldom that you'll get two Artwolf. I mean, in my entire time working in the outdoors, I can remember maybe 3 occasions when I've seen Artwolves actually foraging in close proximity to another. Normally the time that you'll get them together, if it's mother with small pups, or a mating pair. But the rest of the time, you're always going to find them by themselves. Anyway, so this time of day now, this is the really, really, really good time for these little guys. So just please bear with us, stick with us, and hopefully we'll get something good coming out of this. Like an
Black Rhinos are still staring at us. They're somewhere in the foreground beneath that ball of fire that's rapidly heading towards the little saddle between those 2 mountain peaks. So I thought we'd maybe just take this in for a few moments. Just enjoy the sun setting in this clear sky. A winter's afternoon in Maputo land. Just the sound of the wind. Herds of animals all around us, zebra, wildebeest. Off in the distance we can see a couple of groups of white rhinos, mothers and calves, sub-adults, and of course these 2 black rhinos. Oh, never mind, apparently we're going to have to shatter the tranquility and quickly send you across to Nicky at Ngala. He's managed to find what he's been looking for.
Earlier we were chatting about that red-crested korhaan, so we managed to find another one, but it's quite far in distance, so I'm just moving so much. It's actually very well camouflaged, and you'll see the head going down and up again. Now, what we saw earlier was that bird eventually started calling. So it was like click, 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 and then as it starts building up, it eventually takes to flight, and it will go up probably 6-7 meters into the air, and then from there fold up its wings and drop to the ground and then fly. We'll just have a look. As soon as it disappears behind that bush, we might as well carry on, because it'll be really hard to see him once he goes beyond that. He might just come up behind. Let's just see if we can get another glimpse. There we go. But just look at the way that this korhaan is moving. Now, unless you know what to be looking out for, or unless you are looking at the middle of the screen, it's really hard to spot him. I mean, with the naked eye, I can't see this korhaan anymore, even though there is a bit of movement from the neck and the grass that I can see. But it almost looks like there's a fine breeze blowing through the grass as it's maneuvering its way through. Well, can't really see it that well anymore. For now, maybe we can slowly start carrying on with our drive. Hopefully there's a chance that we can possibly get that leopard, as we mentioned earlier. So Roshni, they are also known as busted. So some of them still have the name busted, but they are in the same family. So what we've noticed is with this particular one, I wonder if it's not probably looking out for any seed, maybe an insect. Because earlier on I thought, oh, he'll just disappear in the back, but looks like it might just eventually head to a bit of a taller strand of grass at the back.
That's super exciting that Nikki managed to find that red-crested Korhan for all of you. And we've asked the sun very nicely to not set very fast, so you've joined us just in time. It's now halfway down beyond that mountain. The two black rhinos have gotten bored of sitting there watching us, and they've headed down the hill to begin their night's feeding. Oh no, as I say that, one has just popped back into view. But it's all about that sunset for now. Going down in the mountains off to the west. We're just going to keep quiet as we watch the last of the sun disappear behind that mountain, take in the sounds of the evening. And there it goes, everybody. Another day in Africa comes to a close. And with that setting of the sun, a whole host of nocturnal creatures are going to be getting active and starting to move around now, just like these two black rhino. Ola, you saying, wow, what a sunset. Ola, this area that we're in now of and beyond Phinda has to be my favorite place on the whole game reserve to watch the sun go down. And while this was beautiful watching it go down on this clear sky, my absolute favorite, Ola, is when there's been a bit of rain and there's a kind of a low-lying layer of stratus clouds. And the sun kind of, as it just dips beneath the clouds and starts to head towards the horizon, we often get the most amazing array of violets and purples and magentas and reds, and to watch that from this part of the reserve, from the hills and with the rolling grasslands beneath, that's my absolute favorite. But this has been pretty special too. There's still that rosy glow between the mountain peaks there. Can hear a couple of quail finches in the distance calling their last for the day. Those of you who joined us this morning, you may remember we got a couple of those on camera. You can start listening out for the calls of some of the nocturnal predators. Hyenas might start to whoop. Lions might start to roar. Jinlin, you saying so spectacular. Jinlin, I couldn't agree with you more. Just a super special way to end the day. And with that, as the colours start to fade in the horizon, I think myself and Marcel are going to carry on and see what else we can find in the coming dusk. Luckily for you guys though, there's still a bit of daylight. Some of the other properties. But we're going to carry on. Like I said, we'll see what else we can find for you.
But I promise you this Artwolf sighting, we cannot move that camera, because if we do and that thing pops out, we're going to be dead in the water. We will not stand a chance in getting a visual on that animal. Well, I doubt it, so I'd rather take the chance that we keep the camera trained there and just be patient. Is there anybody out there? Hello? If you can still hear me, blink your right eye. if you can't, blink your left eye, but then I'll know you still heard me. I think we're all fair.
Yeah, I think so too.
I think we're long all fair. I think I've just been rambling on you. Like, I don't know. Well,
I hope they got a bit of
I just talk softly.
I hope they got the bit about. If we want to go look at something else, we can.
Did you hear that? It was a very broken comm, so I just heard like a...
Dylan, we love.
Oh, we love.
Yeah.
Hey, you're still with us. This is fantastic. Geez, I nearly thought I'd been abandoned to my fate. Well, thank you. I'm so excited now. Yes. Geez, that's awesome, man. You can stick with us as long as you want. We won't go anywhere. If you promise not to go anywhere, I won't go anywhere. Yes, this is so cool. I promise you, if we get this, I'm going to be over the moon. They actually are part of the hyena family. I don't know if you know that, but when it pops out, you're gonna see this animal and you say, "Geesh, but that looks like a hyena." It's actually very reminiscent of striped hyena, but like totally different diet compared to hyena. So. It's amazing to think, and that's the one thing with the Kalahari. In fact, a lot of ecosystems, when you think of the life forms that are so dependent, like inextricably tied to the soil, it is just staggering. And I mean, I say that, and yet every single life form on Earth, we say, plants are so important. They said, but the plants need soil to grow in. They need substrate to grow in. So, and your soils are comprised of not just the physical grains of sand, but all these little microbes and these other little organisms living inside the sand. And they growing, breeding, dying, just contributing a huge amount of nutrients to the soil. So everything is really totally linked to this amazing red stuff that we're driving on now for growth, but then also for shelters. Like down below, there's an Artwolf. We're going to get an Artwolf just now. We're going to get an Artwolf just now. Just had some sandgrouse fly past again. Look, we're not going to be looking at them. We've got 40 minutes to go, and we are going to get an Artwolf. I can tell you now we're going to get an Artwolf. I know it. I absolutely know it. If we don't get an Artwolf, Davy has said he will get all the viewers a round of drinks. I thought that was very brave of him to say that. Tracy has just asked, are Artwolf the same species as a jackal? I know they're not. Artwolf are completely different to a jackal. In fact, they'll have no associations. In fact, I've seen, how crazy this is, I've seen a jackal carrying a dead Artwolf. I don't know how the Artwolf died. I'm not saying the jackal killed it. But jackal are scavengers, and they will do it. And he actually trotted, this was years ago, he actually trotted all the way down the road towards us. went straight past the vehicle and buried it. It was, when I say it was an Artwolf, it was like half an Artwolf. I can't even remember which half it was, front or back. Anyway, he carried this half an Artwolf past us and then went and buried it under a bush close by. I've seen cheetah catching Artwolf. So, I mean, these, and even things like your large raptors, a giant eagle is more than capable of catching an Artwolf. I mean, these are not big animals. Although I'm going out on a limb by saying that because I don't even know if that's been recorded. I'm just taking an absolute wild guess going on the size of these animals and the size of giant eagles and the prey items they actually go for. Leopard, they would fall prey to leopard. And we've got good numbers of leopard in this area. But again, coming back to the soils and the vegetation of the termites, this grass cover is absolutely key. And because Tswalu is such a vast area, your rainfall can vary considerably over this landscape. So it's not just if we say, oh, the reserve gets 300 mils of rain, it doesn't mean the whole reserve gets 300 mils of rain every year. You could get one area that gets 40 mils of rain for 3 or 4 seasons running. You know, you can get another area that's 500 mils of rain. So it's very, very variable, and you get variable grass cover densities based on that. And the challenge for something that's eating, you know, these specialist feeders, it's what they call obligate feeders. You know, they are essentially, as the name says, they are obligated to feed on a particular food item. And so you get these little guys, if their prey base crashes, they either need to move and find something, or they crash with it. And, you know, I tell you can't just pack your bags and go somewhere else. Why? Because those territories are also occupied. So you can try it, but you always run the risk of some kind of injury in it. So Ian has also asked, how long do Artwolves sleep for? That's a very interesting question. Again, it comes back to this whole thing of lions sleeping for 18 hours a day. They don't sleep lions do not sleep for 18 hours a day. Nothing sleeps for 18 hours solid unless you're hibernating or estivating. Look up the word estivating, it's quite interesting. But in terms of Artwolf, they can spend up to 80% or more of their time down a burrow when they're not feeding. In other words, they don't even necessarily lie above ground. Their food items are these little termites are actually relatively nutrient poor. So they battle to maintain their energy levels, Artwolf, if they're not feeding. So what they'll do, and I'm putting this like in a real nutshell here, so they'll go out, they'll forage, but when they're not foraging, if foraging's not optimal, in order to conserve energy, they get down their burrows. What they do down that burrow, how much time they actually spend sleeping, that is a completely different ballgame. So I really can't answer that, but good question. Ooh. And then Ryan has asked, what is their main food source? It is termites. In fact, one genus of termites is the key component of their diet, and that is a little guy called Trinovatermes. We call them snouted termites, snouted harvester termites out here. They are gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous looking little termites. They've got like a little snout on their nose. So my picture was wrong. I drew the wrong termites there. Those aren't ants, those are termites. And then how long are their tongues? I have no idea how long their tongues are. You know, if you look at them lapping up food, I'm sure someone's probably done the stats, and I can look up how long their tongues are. But it's essentially, if you imagine your dog's tongue, those of you who have dogs, it's kind of like that. But the tongue has got a lot of papillae on it, so it's a lot of these little protrusions, as well as the palate has got these lovely hard ridges on it, and that's probably actually aids in increasing the surface area when they're going out and lapping up termites. There's some interesting work that's been done, in fact very good work that's been done on the diets of them and how much they eat, and you're looking at anything between 220,000 to 300,000, hold on to your pants, termites per night, per individual Artwolf. That is a lot of termites. Imagine getting down on your hands and knees and trying to lick up 300,000 termites in a night. Yowzers. I wouldn't try it. But if you want to, feel free. I'm not going to judge you. But But they are really, really, really awesome animals, eh? And that's why I'm holding thumbs, I'm crossing my legs, I'm doing whatever I can to try and get you a sighting. Because I think you guys deserve it. You've been very patient and yeah, it's all about patience, eh?
Wild Earth relies on support from viewers like you to carry on broadcasting our daily live shows. A small donation goes a long way in helping us on our mission to connect the world with nature. Please visit our support page to see how you can help and become part of the Wild Earth family.
So just as Dylan is playing the patience game over at Tswalu with the Artwolves, we've decided to come and start a little patience game of our own here at this waterhole. Now, I mentioned earlier that this is the time of day when we'd expect rhinos, both white and black, to be coming down to drink. And Marcel and I saw what looked like 2 white rhinos just on the other side of this ridge, heading in this direction. So we're going to spend a little bit of time here. I'm really hoping that they do come down here and drink while we're here. It was amazing to see that big herd of buffalo here drinking out of this pan this morning. And I think to get some rhinos drinking here as well in the twilight with their reflections on the water will be really, really special. There's no sign of them just yet, but I'm going to keep my eyes and binoculars as well trained on the hillside behind us, and hopefully we get rewarded. Just while we sit here, there's a grey heron. If you have a look on the left hand side of the screen there, in that dead tree, see it there silhouetted against the sky, perched dead still up on that little branch. And it probably would have been wading through this pan a little bit earlier, looking for any sign of fish or little frogs for it to eat, even invertebrates. Out on these grassy plains we do often get lots of grasshoppers and locusts, and sometimes they get caught by the wind or accidentally end up in the water and make for a very nutritious meal for birds like this grey heron. Look at how it's got its neck tucked up against its body, and that's more or less how it would stand if it was getting ready to spear something with that bill. It would stand dead still in a body of water. If it spotted something, it would tuck its neck in like that, and then like a loaded spring, shoot that neck out with that sharp bill, and then grab the poor unsuspecting prey. I remember growing up as a child, we had a pond in our backyard, and the pond, we built the pond specifically to try and attract birds to our garden, and at one stage we managed to get some young rainbow trout, which we had living in our pond. And it's very nice to watch them swimming around, obviously very attractive fish. And we went on holiday and left a family member of ours to look after our house. And after a couple of days of being away, she called us and said, "I'm very sorry, but your fish have all gone. There's only one left, and it's got an enormous hole through its body." And so we came back a couple of days later, and that night, the night that we arrived, I remember my dad walked into the garden in the twilight. It's about the same kind of amount of light as there is now. And he saw an enormous grey heron lift out of the pond and fly away. So it's obviously the grey heron that had been visiting our pond in the low light of the evening and eating all of our rainbow trout. It must have been a very fat heron afterwards, because yeah, there's a lot of trout that it ended up eating over the course of a week or so. Look what it's doing now. Look at how it's using its back leg to just scratch an itch there around its face. Very attractive bird. Quite a successful body shape as well. There's very similar looking herons in the United States. Oh, here come the rhinos, everybody, here come the rhinos. Sorry, Marcel, just off to the left. The rhinos are coming down the hill. You can just see their silhouettes against the sky. Here they come. Oh, and they're heading straight down towards the water. Oh, this is going to be so special if they do come down and drink, everyone. See how they've got their heads down for now, busy smelling as they go. And walking quite rapidly. Look at that. Oh, I'm so excited. If they come down and drink, this is going to be amazing. And they'll be following kind of worn game paths that all the different animals that come down to drink at this waterhole will have used. The buffalo herds, the impalas, the zebra and the wildebeest herds. There is, of course, the off chance that they decide that they don't want to drink and that I've gotten all excited for nothing. I hope that that's not the case, everybody. But for now, that does look promising. There is quite a prominent game path there that I can see that they're moving down. Rebecca's just remarking she's never seen rhinos walking this fast. They are certainly missioning, Rebecca. They've got their heads down, they're following a scent, it looks like. Using that very good sense of smell of theirs to help them to get to this waterhole. Like we said, it's one of the only bodies of water in the area, so they'll know it well. KFC, you're asking how fast a rhino can go. At KFC, they've been recorded at running at speeds of around 45 kilometers an hour. If I'm not mistaken, KFC, I don't know what part of the world you're from. I think that's about 30 miles an hour. So for a big animal that's around 2,000 kilograms, that's moving. And even like Rebecca was saying, they can cover quite a vast distance as well at a walk or at a bit of a trot. And I once remember seeing a white rhino and her calf in an open plain, and something gave them a fright. And they started to run, not at full speed, it was at a speed that the little calf could keep up with its mother. And they covered easily a kilometer in, I don't know, I didn't time it, but it was very startling to see how quickly they managed to cover that distance. I know that for now. Oh, here he comes. Here he comes. See, still head down to the ground, smelling very carefully. There's the second one. I don't even think that they've noticed us now, everybody. Remember with the black rhino we said that they could probably smell us with the wind blowing across us like that and from us to them? Right now, we're kind of at a right angle to the wind. So the wind is blowing from the front of the vehicle, so from the far right-hand side of the screen to the far left-hand side of the screen. So they won't be able to smell us unless it changes direction ever so slightly. So I'm going to lower my voice a little bit now. Oh, this is just what we were hoping for when we came and set up at this waterhole. Oh, and they're heading straight down towards the water. Oh, this is going to be so special if they do come down and drink, everyone. Look at how it's got its tail curled up. That's a sign of a rhino that's agitated or intrigued. I think it's just now noticed us, which is why it's curled its tail over its back. And the tail has gone flat again, so that tells us that he's relaxed. Oh, and they are two colossal white rhinos. My goodness, they are enormous. And you know what, everybody? The wind has just swung direction. It's now blowing from us towards them. It may be why they suddenly halted. And they'll probably take a minute or two here just to listen and smell. They'll know that lots of other animals will come down to the water, so they just want to make sure that they know what's around them before they do anything. And they're on the move again. Looks like two males, everybody. Oh, coming right towards us. How magnificent is this scene, everyone? The grey heron still sitting on its perch in the back there. Okay, we're looking down into that little trough there. Oh, please come down and drink at the water. Listen to their footfalls. It looks like there's a bit of water in that little trough there, everyone. And that seems to be their chosen spot to drink. There, do you see the water dribbling out of his mouth? It's been a rhino-filled afternoon, everyone. Black rhinos, white rhinos. And this is, I think, just the ultimate way for us to end it off. With just enough light as well. And these rhinos could have walked for miles to have gotten here. We were talking earlier about how fast they were walking to get to water. They obviously needed it quite badly, or wanted to come and drink quite badly. Now, rhinos can go for quite a few days without water, but if they can get water, they will drink readily. And so these two bulls could have been kilometers from here, and they've trekked all the way to get to this precious water. Just have a look at the size of this rhino, everyone. Look at how his belly hangs right down to the, almost to kind of where his elbows would be. And look at how big that muscle mass is around his shoulders and then around his neck. And this is what we were talking about earlier. Remember, we were talking about, oh, there goes the grey heron flying away. We were talking about kind of the neutral head carrying position of a white rhino, and how when it lifts its head it forms that bunch of muscle on the back of the neck. See that bulge there? As he lifts his head, it forms like a bit of a hump. But then when he puts his head back down, it smoothens out. Because that's where a white rhino will normally carry its head when it's feeding, when it's drinking. Just like this one's doing now. Hope you're all getting some action screenshots of the water dribbling out of his mouth whenever he lifts his head. Sassy Cassie, you're asking if rhinos are full of blubber or if they're just all muscle. Sassy Cassie, there are not too many animals out here in the African bush that are covered in blubber. It'll mainly just be muscle, Sassy Cassie. If they are in particularly good condition, there may be bits of deposits of maybe bits of fat throughout the body, but typically they'll be very lean, very muscular. And they'll rely more on their body size to keep warm. So an animal this size has got a very large volume, very high volume, and then a relatively low surface area. So it maintains its body temperature very well. One of the ways that it'll keep warm. So even though these rhinos don't have any long fur to cover themselves to keep warm, and it can get quite chilly here Obviously nowhere near as cold as in the, I suppose, in the northern hemisphere or in the Arctic or areas where it snows, but it still does get pretty chilly, and it's just the sheer size of these rhinos that will help to keep them warm. But yeah, I suppose they do look quite chubby, especially looking at that big belly and how round it is. And that's just from the way that a rhino's digestive system works. With it being a hind gut fermenter, just like a zebra. So the same reason that they've got those big bulges, just a build-up of gas. Oh, and here's an Egyptian goose flying in across the screen. Oh, spurwing goose, sorry, my apologies. Photo bombing the drinking rhinos. Must have just seen the reflection of the water from the air, looking for a spot to rest for the night. But how these rhinos are still drinking, everyone. Remember we said earlier that they could have walked for miles, trying to slake their thirst. I don't know if you were able to see that, everybody. Just in front of the rhinos' faces, there's a flurry of wings every now and then, and it's a bat. There's a little insectivorous bat that's flying around the rhinos. And remember earlier we saw all those flies all around the rhino. I wonder if it's not maybe being attracted by all the little flying insects around the rhinos. Devin, you're asking if rhinos can see well in the dark. Devin, just in general, rhinos are not renowned for their eyesight. Look at how big its ears are and also how big the nostrils of this rhino are. Those are the two senses that this rhino will rely on mainly. That being said though, they do, I suppose they can see well enough at night. They do have if you shine a light onto a rhino's eye, there is a reflection that comes back. So they do have a reflective layer behind the eye that does help them to see in the dark, although it's not a sense that they're going to be relying on very much. It's mainly their sense of smell, their sense of hearing. I suppose well enough to keep them from bumping into things and walking where they shouldn't. Oh, and coming down the hill towards us now. Oh, if it goes past this waterhole and we can get ready for screenshots, everybody, we might be able to get a picture of the reflection of the rhino with the water. If he just takes a few more steps to the right and one or two more towards us. Did you hear that? There was a bit of a lip smack and an exhalation from the rhino on the right. Satisfied after his long drink. Almost just taking a moment after their long and brisk walk. Here comes the second one. And off they go. Oh, look at the reflection in the water there. This is unreal. Listen to their footsteps. I'm going to keep quiet. Well, off they go, everybody. Like we said, we had that little plan to play the waiting game and to try and, well, we were hoping to have rhinos come down and drink, and that's exactly what they did. With just enough light for us to have been able to film it, so it definitely paid off. That was insane. I hope that you all got some beautiful photographs or screenshots, especially of those reflections as they walk past. What a fantastic way to end off our day. I think myself...
Still no life on this wicket yet, but we're not going to move, we're not going to give up. We've still got a bit of time left, and we know this little guy's down here, so we're just going to have to stick it out. I think my thinking here is, with this warmer weather that we've had, it's probably going to come out a little bit later, but I'm still going to be optimistic, and I'm hoping that it'll come out actually before the close of the drive. At least we're here. That's the big thing. We're here, we've shown up, we're making an effort. I don't know how many of you have seen Artwolf, but they're very, very special little animals, yeah. And very, very shy, very secretive, well, certainly in these areas. And that's why it's such a special sighting if we can get it. The only other thing that's made an appearance so far is a black-backed jackal, but he was far away, far down to the right-hand side, probably about 150 meters away. Again, he wouldn't normally be a threat to an Artwolf. It's interesting, and Artwolf have been, in many areas, were actually persecuted quite heavily at one stage because of their resemblance to hyenas, and stock farmers used to think that they actually would go for livestock. But I mean, I think that practice has died away a long, long, long time ago. Well, yeah, I like to believe that. But this is like one of the best little guys for any kind of livestock. I see we just got some questions coming through over here. So Lulubele has just asked, do they scavenge like hyenas? Not at all. These guys are obligate feeders on termites. If they don't get termites, they'll die. They actually have been, and I've seen them eating other insects, but that's normally in really, really, really dry times. There are records of them actually feeding around old carcasses, and that's probably going for worms, maggots, those kind of things, or larvae that are in the ground. But no, they won't scavenge like hyenas at all. These are such specialist feeders, and that's why it's so important that we maintain these habitats in good condition to allow for these kind of species to persist in these environments. And all too often the focus is on the larger game species and not taking these little guys into account. Yes, I nearly thought there was a flick of an ear there. But I was wrong. I thought I was wrong, but I was wrong. So Katie has just asked, do Artwolf mark their territory? Yes, they do. They actually do anal pasting as they go around. And that's a very, very, and also the urine, it's got a very distinct odor, and that'll be a very good marker for their territories. And they'll actually aggressively chase intruders out of their areas. And it's quite interesting in terms of the foraging and why they do that is, remember I said they normally forage alone, and the reason they do that is the termites that they're eating, they need to eat so many, and it's a relatively low nutritional food item, so they've got to eat a lot of low nutrition food items, and so it doesn't help them, even though they're a family group, because you get these little family groups, it doesn't help them all foraging around in the same place. And that's why when they get up and get going, you'll often get a whole lot of individuals, or when I say a whole lot, 2, 3, 4 individuals, but all moving out in different directions and foraging like that.
Good evening, everybody. I just joined now for the safaris.
I believe you are on Still Life Safari, where we managed to see some hippos. My name is Raymond, together with Theo and my cameraman. So we just arrived here on a dam, which is Viatela Dam. We first look around at the back where we were trying to get some hyena on a hyena dam. We didn't get any hyena at all. So all the hyenas, they went through to hunting as it is active during the night. So we did come just over here to Viatela Dam, where we did manage to find some elephant bathing, sharing water together with a hippo. Let me drive a little bit forward, that maybe we can manage to see the hippo. It's a time for him to get out in order for grazing. It's keep on yawning to show you that how am I on the way here. You'll tell me to stop, okay? First thing. Yeah. Okay. Now we are on hippo sighting together with the elephant. The hippo trying to chase the elephant on its own. They're done with the drinking. Now they're trying to test, playing how power you are more than myself. It was a little bit plenty, so some they already gone through to that side of west. So those one, they were the last one to drink, which are the bulls, also protecting the head. They will join them. Soon they finish to clean for themselves, drinking, as now they are playing, enjoying the weather, as the weather today is so fantastic. Look how they are. Oh, my poor hippo is trying to run off. Remember, the hippo doesn't swim. It's walking like those elephants. Look what it's doing. It's trying to make scary for them. Can listen the water how it is by playing with the elephant, big animals. They are enjoying to swim, to cool up the body. Martin, repeat your question, the moment. Oh, Martin, that's a good question, because I think sometimes I have ever said something about them. I still remember when I was working at Londoloz, I was giving 2 oranges and 1 pawpaw. That elephant took it from my basket for 2 days. The third one, they come. That means they know that 2 days for oranges and 1 pawpaw, every day they were doing that. After 2 days, they don't forget. So I believe them, even over here, they know that this is the area where they can manage to come and play and swim. They don't forget at all the elephant. I believe the memory for elephant is evenly more than a human being. Myself, I can evenly forget something which had been ever happened long time ago. Oh, look how they are playing. The other one wants to climb to another one that they can take them. Oh, come, Abba, let's go. So they can play together, and they know, like a brother and sisters, that they can play with its brother and sisters. They can be a family, the elephant. They have got a very, very memory more than human being. And I respect evenly more than a human being. Morgan, that is a good question. Not quite often, especially in winter, they can play, but they do play mostly if it is very hot to cool up their body. So in winter, it's not that much pressure for them. But in summer, they can do play evenly during the night because they spend a long time. If it is very hot, they also relaxing because the weather can be hit anyone. Evenly the elephant are big, but if it is very hot, they are not happy more than the way it is. But in winter, sometimes, not quite often, every day. Oh. But in summer, they can play quite often, every time and again, to try to cool up its body because like this in summer, it's still hot on this time. Yes, Charlie, it is disturbing him. He won't show exactly, but he was trying to chase them, as that shows us that he's not happy, because long time ago he was also opening his mouth about 90 degrees, trying to chase them. But unfortunately, because they are too big for them, they don't ignore. But the hippo, to me, it's not happy about what they are doing, because it's his land. He's owning, he believes that their land is outside, so that's why he's coming to the water where he believes it's own land. So he cannot be happy about what they are doing. Thank you, everybody. I believe that you did enjoy our views. We will see everybody tomorrow morning.